the Judicial Nominating Commission to select him as one of 5 finalists for the position, and then the governor to pick him. So I'm interested to see if that goes forward. Clearly, this hasn't been something that has gone under the radar, and I suppose I'm going to have to reserve my judgment on Mr. Leach until he actually comes in front of the Judiciary Committee for his approval. What
was the revolving? I mean, the concept of one of the senior, arguably, after Gordon Fox, possibly, particularly given the current governor, the second most powerful man in the state, not being in a position of policy making, seems a little odd to the average Rhode Islander.
It does, and from my reading of the press accounts, it seemed odd to the chair of the Ethics Commission. But there does seem to be a consensus that is the way that statute is drafted, and that it needs to be fixed.
It seems really odd to me that the guy that stood up before the legislature and said, Wall Street always wins, so you have to pay back these bonds. In other words, we have to obey Wall Street, is not in a policy-making position. That, I think, to Poe's point, or to PO taxpayers' point, that's unfathomable to the average guy who reads the Providence Journal or GoLocalProv.com or watches any of the various news outlets.
That's absolutely fair. I fully support making the revolving door law apply to folks that are in Mr. Leach's position. I've had a chance to get to know him since I was elected, and he's been in that role. It's about one of the most important jobs in state government. So I was sort of surprised that he was eligible.
What about Montalbano's nomination? I mean, here's a guy who sails through, despite being, to the average person, the epitome of everything that's wrong with Rhode Island. He created his own little power center within the state. He leaves state office, gets hit with an ethics violation, pays it, or supposedly has paid a big fine, and now how does it work that a guy's paying big fines and becomes a judge?
I believe in Judge Montalbano's case, he paid the fine with no finding of
right. He admitted no wrongdoing,
and
sure.
That the issue at stake there was a failure to disclose on his annual ethics statements that he had been paid for some legal work by the city of West Warwick at the time that the Harrah's casino was in the mix over there. The way it was described to me by Judge Montalbano while he was in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee was that this was an oversight. That's how it was described to me by other members of the judiciary when I raised these concerns. And the judicial confirmation process is, maybe a flaw in the system, but it's the one time for the public and interested citizens to come before the Senate and say, I want to speak to the credentials and the qualifications of this candidate. And with Judge Montalbano, on both occasions, nobody did. But
I think I'll play I'll play the great Catholic tradition of devil's advocate. I think I'll play it here. I mean, to all accounts, Judge Montalbano's been a municipal judge for years. He's been a lawyer for years. He understands how state government works because he's been a state senator. By all accounts, he has the qualifications for the position. I guess you would disagree with me, P.O., but I mean, the governor is not going to go to the phone book to look for someone to become a judge. I mean, all these people are connected in some way. That's just how politics, how it works. At some point, you're going to have to look at it and be a little bit pragmatic and say, but they're not going to go to do an intergalactic search to appoint a judge.
I guess I see the point behind that, and there's no doubt on at least superficially on an academic level that he's qualified for it. Although one has to wonder, and never having been to a Senate Judiciary hearing on the appointment of a judge, what was said, woes me. I should be before I make the statement. But when I think about how Supreme Court justices are nominated, when I think of how judges are nominated at the federal level, there is at least an investigation or discussion of the judge's outlook on, say, something as straightforward as, is he a strict constructionist, or is he one of these folks that the Constitution is a living, breathing thing?
Well, that's why we have the legislature. I mean, that's the legislature's job, as Senator Hodgson is pointing out, to ask those questions.
And so
if there's any blame here, it goes on the legislature.
And with each of these individuals, you are looking at a residual. You're looking at a residual political aspect to their life as they approach the bench, and that's So you have your political life, your professional life, and with lawyers and lawyer legislators, it seems to overlap quite a bit. And it's very easy to see, the public reaction against these types of appointments. Ultimately, going to your point, nominating judges is always going to be a little bit messy because who do you expect to lead in politics? You hope that it's your prominent, thoughtful, accomplished professionals, and that includes members of the bar too. So it's no surprise that you would see talented lawyers coming out of politics and aspire to the bench. On the same side, there are more qualified lawyers that have nothing to do with politics that we hate to see discouraged from the bench. So
that's a great point.
Looking at this, I try to back away from the individual case by case and look at process. They say JNC is working better than the old system of
what else are they going to say?
Right. I think there's always room for improvement. It's going to be interesting to see if Governor Chafee moves forward with the Leach appointment. That's probably a big question mark.
With regard to pension reform, what say you about the notion of a judge seemingly ignoring a duly legislated product that is the pension reform? Let's step away from her issues in terms of a manager of the pension, but strictly the process itself, and opening it up to the kind of, I don't know, not arbitration, but the kind of bargaining that you usually see in an automobile accident case, for lack of a better term.
Well,
what are your thoughts on that?
I think in this pension lawsuit, the rule of law has been turned on its head. I'm just taken aback by the direction this has gone. And this does get to the topic we were just talking about in your selecting judges. When you are picking a judge with a lifetime appointment and giving them the authority that comes with that office forever, you really should think long and hard about their legal perspective. Here, I disagree with the Superior Court judge's ruling not to dismiss the case in the first instance. She recognized a new theory of law in order to keep the case alive and not dismiss it. And then she shipped it off to this mediation process, which I find to be very, very troubling because the unions were well within their rights to challenge the constitutionality of our action on public pensions in the courts. And it's the court's job and responsibility to say, legislature, you either took a constitutional action or you did not.
That's right.
There's no mediation of that question. Now, what you've said is just shipping it off to this secret negotiating room. You're handing off my job. I'm an elected state senator, and as are my 112 colleagues. That was our job, and we went about it in a very transparent, open process. It was tough. It hurt a lot of people. It wasn't completely fair, but we were elected to do that job and use our judgment. And here, the parties are just getting a chance to go secretly work out their own deal. Highly, highly inappropriate.
And it seems like the people that are doing the negotiations don't have the authority to agree to them. In other words, they're writing checks that they can't promise that will be cash because it's up to the legislature to agree to that.
Absolutely true. As a member of the Senate, I've objected to
as has the Speaker of the House,
the mediation process from the very beginning. As Attorney General, who has representatives in these negotiations. If I was the Attorney General at the time, that would have been a major bone of contention for me. I would have done everything to keep it out of this extra legal process and keep it in the courts where we either live by the Constitution or we have to go fix it. But there's none of this. I look at it this way. Lawyers for the unions are about to tell their clients, well, what they did was unconstitutional. What we're going to do is still unconstitutional, but it hurts less. So we're going to accept it.
That's a great way to put it.
I don't think that's an ethical position to take.
No, it's Mickey Mouse law.
Up or down, and politics takes place in the State House. The law should stay in the courts.
Mm-hmm.
Is the fruits of that likely to be then subject to additional judicial review?
It would anything that would require new judicial review would be a new pension law that has to be passed. Mm-hmm. Any settlement is nothing more than a recommendation to bring to the legislature. I'm not saying it will have no momentum because it is coming out of this mediated process, and politicians like to please people. Mm-hmm. But it has on its own the document that comes out of the mediator's room and may even have a judge's signature on it, as Rhode Island Superior Court approved, has absolutely no force in law and is nothing more than a suggestion to the legislature to go back and revisit what we spent the better part of 2011 doing.
And suppose the Speaker of the House says, no, we're not going to do it. We don't want to.
I expect that posture. It's one of the few areas where I think I agree with the leadership of the House and the Senate that they're going to say this is not what we're going to do. That's not to say that pension reform can't be fine-tuned. I don't want. I think I was pretty clear. We didn't get it perfect.
What do you mean by that? What was wrong with pension reform?
Well, my concern is that we probably weren't conservative enough, and that I always,
Thank you.
I really, my biggest fear when we passed it is that a legislature in 15 years would come back and have to do the same thing again.
Why is that?
Because the assumed rate of return is just too high.
What you think it's too high? I
think it's too high from what the market is going to produce. I think that.
But historically, the market has produced a 9% return on investment since 1926.
We have been in extremely tumultuous times, and I just But
the market looks long term. The market doesn't go year to year. You have to look 50 years out.
You are right, and that's why this hedge fund conversation that we're going to get into about the treasurer is somewhat nuanced. But it was my opinion when we passed it that this was a very strong step in the right direction. But
sure.
it wasn't a fix for all time.
Okay.
And you come back and you fix the nuances. You rough out and smooth out the hard edges. But here they're just looking to completely redo it.
As a senator, put back on your senator hat for a second, not your presumptive attorney general hat. Do you think that they should have gone immediately to some form of 401k style plan right off the get-go?
Yes.
But they did go to a 401k style.
The hybrid defined contribution.
Right. Sure, that's a 401k plan. Only in government
and part
lingo, it's 402k or something like that.
But it's also part pension. So
sure, the federal plan is just like that. Yes. It's part defined benefit and it's part 401k, defined contribution.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But I'll agree with you that it was just...
I know you will.
I don't even give it 15 years. I give it another 4 or 5. The next dip we have, particularly Rhode Island style dip, never, regardless of what direction our next treasurer takes us on. We're down to a couple minutes. We could spend another hour here. This is great.
Fascinating conversation.
Segue
sure,
what we spoke about when I first arrived, and that is this conflation that's going on now between the investment strategy and returns of the general treasurer and pension reform writ large. Mm-hmm. That issue is deliberately being conflated. Frankly, the most misleading piece of this Ted Seidel report that I read is the title. Rhode Island Public Pension Reform, Wall Street License to Steal. Because other than the title, that report, all 100 pages, has almost nothing to do with pension reform. It's all about the
hedge funds. That's right.
Hedge funds and the treasurer's personal history. That's her battle to fight. I think she's a very accomplished person that is going to make a strong case for herself and for her investment strategies. I'm not a financial expert, so I don't. I'm not going to pass judgment on how she's investing the money. I will when I'm further educated on it. But what I will say is what we did on structural pension reform was absolutely critical. It's got to be defended. It's going to require the same type of political leadership and backbone that we had when we passed it to be in place to make sure that it's protected.
And both sides have an interest in conflating the issues because the unions want to throw out pension reform, and Raimondo wants to lean on pension reform as a great accomplishment that it was for her.
That's right.
So in other words, it's Rhode Island and everything else is just like a country western song.
Sure.
My side, your side, and the truth.
And my column in golocalprov.com tomorrow will address exactly what we're talking about here.
Super.
Or what we just spoke about.
Well, let's go around the room again, welcoming Russ Moore.
Thank you very much.
I hope everyone read his piece tomorrow on Go Local Prov. You can comment on our Facebook page, the Coalition on Talk Radio. I'm P.O. Taxpayer, Christine, and our eminent guest. I hope we have the chance to have you on again. We'd love to have you on during the as the campaign really heats up.
We'll see if we can turn the heat down in this room.
It's been great to be here. I'm Dawson Hodgson. You can follow me on Twitter at Dawson Hodgson, or find me on Facebook, or look up just Google Rhode Island Senate District 35. It's great to be here.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Well, it's been real. I apologize to anyone listening if I've made any crazy screw-ups with the board today. This is the Coalition, Talk Radio, exploring all sides of an issue, and we are being hosted on WARL Radio in Attleboro and Providence, 1320 a.m. on the radio dial, and you can catch us on podcast after the fact on Spreaker.com or on iTunes. Thank you very much. Have a great time.
Okay.
Definitely not live.
Can we swear yet?
With the new mobile check deposit function on my mobile banking app, I can deposit checks right away. I don't have to wait to go to the bank or ATM. So thanks to Grandma,